Food is fuel for your body, your mind, and definitely your sport. But let's face it, nutrition is confusing, and the expectations on girls and women to be thin and have a six-pack are exhausting. If you've ever been frustrated with your body, confused about nutrition, obsessed with eating healthy, or guilty when you don't, underate, overate, or overtrained, and overwhelmed with all the pressure, then this podcast is for you. Nutrition can be easy, you can take control of it, but it might start with letting go of control by asking for help and making a change. I'm Lindsay Elizabeth Cortez, sports dietitian and owner of Rise Up Nutrition, where I empower female athletes to overcome nutrition concerns and perform at their highest level, to stop being confused by all the mixed or harmful messages, and finally have confidence in your body as a fierce, fit, and fueled female athlete. Today's episode is thanks to our Patreon members and our affiliates and partners. Head to patreon.com/femaleathletenutrition to join our membership or donate to the podcast, and stay tuned to hear about some amazing deals and discounts from our partners, including Previnix, Inside Tracker, Orgain, Practice Better, and Jen and Carrie. But for now, we're getting right to the show. Enjoy. Hey fans, Lindsay Cortez here, your host of the podcast, owner of Rise Up Nutrition. Really amazing guest with us today, Tina Muir. She's the founder and CEO of Running for Real, which is obviously her organization and an amazing podcast. So this might be one of the first times I've had a podcaster as a guest who's far more experienced with podcasting than I am. So this is pretty cool. The tables are turned right now. More about Tina. She is a mother of two and former international runner for Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Tina hosts the Running for Real podcast, which has amassed over 6 million downloads. The Running for Real podcast is a collective of conversations about running, the climate emergency, and social justice. Tina also hosts a second NPR-style podcast with Knox Robinson called Running Realized, noted as the Invisibilia of running by women's running. Tina has worked with the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs and been featured in The Guardian, The Telegraph, People Magazine, Outside Self, and Women's Health. Tina, thanks again for being willing to come on our much smaller podcast over here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. And it's really cool too, just how, what started for you with a small podcast. Everything starts small, right? But has really grown over the years, and how it's expanded into, your business and all the different ways that you help. It's like, even your own podcast has started with Running for Real running, but like you talk about so many other things now, right?
Yeah, no, we all should have a goal to continue to evolve. And that's something that I've loved to do. It's like the mission started the same. And I think this is with most people of what our passions are. We have a mission, we have something that's important to us, but what that means to you evolves. So for me, it was always like the primary reason for what I did was I didn't want people to feel alone. And now I've expanded what that means. So it's still the same driver, but yeah, thank you. It's been fun to explore.
Yeah. Yeah. So cool. So I think there's so much that you bring to the table and that you can offer. And we're going to focus this conversation today around your journey with running and experiences with Amenorrhea and RED-S, which is now, focused in helping other athletes navigate that as well. So let's kind of kick this off with just sharing for any of our listeners that aren't as familiar with the running world as we do work and have listeners with all types of athletes. Just a little bit about your running journey. You are from England. You came over to the States to run collegiately and then eventually run professionally as well. Can you just share with us kind of, when running became such not just a passion in your life? I guess that's one question. And then the next question, like when it was, okay, I'm pursuing this at a high level.
Yeah, so I have mentioned before that I think most people, when they think about an elite athlete, imagine someone who was running around age 3 and just never stopped running, and they loved it from childhood. But for me, that really wasn't the case. I mean, of course, I have now family friends who will say, "Oh, you were always running around," and I'm like, "Was I?" Or you just kind of remembering that positively because now you've got this like extra piece of information. But it was when I was 14. But I didn't particularly care for running. In fact, I really didn't like it. And I've told the story many times that I hid in the bathrooms for the tryouts for the cross country team because I didn't want to do it. And actually, I haven't ever said this piece. I recently had my coach from that time on my podcast, and he confirmed. I was like, maybe I'd made that story up, but he was like, nope, this was someone who said, I don't like running. I don't want to run. And so I went from that to it really was a case of just recognizing, wow, I'm actually pretty good at this. And from there, continuing to improve, even though that said coach was really holding me back, which I really struggled with at the time. But now he is one of the most pivotal people in my life for doing exactly that, not putting his own, he could have had a star athlete. He could have had someone who was, top 15-year-old, 17-year-old, but he knew that he wanted me to have a lifelong relationship with the sport. And so I continued to improve, but maybe not as fast as I could have done. But it was enough to where I was offered scholarships to come to the US. And that was where I came over. And that was, the moment you said about realizing that's really when it shifts, right? Because before you can be good in school, it can be something you do. And I will admit that even in my final year of high school, I wasn't fully committed. I was trying to straddle the line of being a 17-year-old who has friends who want to go out and party with trying to run. But in that moment, it was really when I started school here in the US, that was the moment. And especially when I arrived on the campus and I was like, you're going to be running 7 days a week, which was something absolutely unimaginable to me, running 7 days a week. You're going to be running, we're going to build you up to 50, 60, 70 miles a week. I was at 20 before. That was hard to wrap my head around.
Yeah.
It felt so serious and so intense, but that was a definite defining moment of like, okay, this is serious and I'm going to treat it as such. And, it took me probably a year, but by the end of that, it was really coming together. And that's when I'd say the next part of my journey began.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we're totally fast forwarding here, but I think it was around 2017 that you stopped professional running and kind of made a decision. And you just correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but just made that decision of I want to have children, move forward with my life. And one of the issues with that is that you struggled with amenorrhea and lack of a menstrual cycle. So that decision of, hey, I want to have a family came with a roadblock in the way. And so to bring it back to, high school, college, or your progression with elite running, at what point did that menstrual cycle go missing? And was it even a concern to you or those around you at that time?
Mm-hmm. And maybe before I get to that, maybe we'll go backwards. Maybe we'll get to this point. But I do want to mention it was kind of almost the other way that I stopped running because I was at a breaking point. We'll get to that. Mm-hmm. I was mentally and physically ready to be done with it. The becoming a mother was almost like something for me to focus. I'm a competitive person, something for me to focus on that I wanted it immediately. I was 28, so it wasn't like I was 20 and completely going, against what, life tells you should be doing at that age. By late 20s, that's when we are kind of getting, seeing the baby pictures. You're starting to think about it. But yes, it kind of was the becoming a mother gave me something to focus on. But yeah, so I did lose my period in high school towards the end, but coincidence or not, I started taking some iron tablets daily and my period came back or was back a few months later. So that was what my coach at the time told me to do. And I still actually to this day, maybe you can answer this, don't know if that was actually what would have helped or if that was just a coincidence.
Mostly coincidence. Yeah.
Okay. But I had a few like missing periods in high school, but it was really once I got to college in that year. It wasn't even that first year that I mentioned. It was the second year I had consciously tried to lose weight after hearing a coach talk about it. And that was when it disappeared. And so it was kind of it wasn't a huge amount, like maybe 10 pounds, but that was enough to panic my body. And at that time, I did bring it up to doctors and we waited till the end of the season. And then I did get everything checked, had ultrasounds and just checks. And they did force my body to have a period through, I think it was 2 or 3 different hormone pills or I don't know, medication that they gave me at the time. And it forced one. But then once it forced one, it was kind of like, okay, box checked. You're obviously fine. When you're ready to stop running, then you can worry about that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, I think it's just so important for us to reflect on, why these things happen, or also like there's still a lot of misinformation from doctors and coaches and kind of brushing it off and things like that. And so, it like started good that, you were aware, you brought attention, you did seek help, and maybe hormone treatment even was appropriate, but it didn't, like, it kind of then fell short there. And maybe the root problem, which was within 2 years, you increased running intensity a lot, as you expressed, going from 20 miles to maybe upwards of 70 sometimes, or, not running every day to running every day of the week. And then in that second year, you did that kind of intentional weight loss. And those two things combined are such a catalyst. Probably in those 2 years, your body was really, in such an energy deficit that it resulted with that lack of a menstrual cycle. And I think this is important to talk about too, that it was kind of probably a 2-year journey of getting to that point, because this is the whole thing with energy deficiency, is sometimes it's happening in the background and you don't pick up on those red flags right away, until suddenly it's like, wait, I don't have a period. Well, why don't we have a period? It's actually what's been happening maybe the months prior to or years prior to.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that is a big piece of this it was very much it was not explained to me in that way, in terms of like what could have caused this. It was instead like a Band-Aid. Let's fix the problem. Okay, you're fixed. All right. When you're ready to stop running, then you can let us know. Whereas it should have been, okay, what have you done? What have you changed? They did document the weight loss, and they did say, okay, well, this has changed by 10 pounds. That's probably why. But it wasn't like, the fact that you've lost your menstrual cycle means you probably aren't consuming enough. So maybe you should try and increase your caloric intake to get that back to where it was. So yeah, but it's, what you can't, if you're in that situation, that was where I defaulted to medical professionals and trusted, that they were doing what was best for me, even at the time, if they didn't maybe know enough or take the time to try and help me figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, we can't go back and blame anybody for any, for sure. But we also do know a lot more now than we did even just 10 years ago. Gosh, even the term RED-S was only coined just about 10 years ago. If even, I think it was 2014 that term was even coined. Of course, the problem existed, but we weren't labeling it RED-S. And I do just want to remind some of my listeners, if this is for any reason the first episode you're tuning into, we have many previous episodes about what is RED-S. Episode number 2, my fundamental one, and then I think it's episode number 110, 111 go into it as well. But RED-S for relative energy deficiency in sport. Yeah, 10 years ago, we really had way less knowledge on it.
Sure, yeah. And I, at that time, when I was going through this, would have been like 2008, 9, 10 and beyond. They had female athlete triad, but one of the triad legs was injuries, like bone injuries, and I wasn't having those. So for me, it was like, oh, well, it's not that, because I'm not having bone issues. So the definition now in itself, and when, you've obviously talked about this, and when people talk about the symptoms, it's not just about the missing menstrual cycle and that being the only determining factor. But that's, again, the knowledge back then we didn't have. It was all to do with cycle, injuries, and I can't remember what the other one was.
So the other one is the nutrition piece, which for a long time was even labeled anorexia, and then it was labeled like underweight or something. And even those two things are limiting, because it's like, you might not be underweight, you might not have anorexia, but you might not be fueling enough for your body's needs. And so, which the Female Athlete Triad Coalition has fixed that since then, and has addressed that. But yeah, there's a good chance that at that time, it's like, I don't have bone issues, I don't have an eating disorder, so this can't be me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Hey fans, I hope you are enjoying this conversation so far, and we'll be back to it in just a moment. But first, I want to pause and let you know that this episode is brought to you by the Female Athlete System of Transformation. aka the fast track to overcome disordered eating and use food as fuel to perform at your highest level. The Female Athlete System of Transformation is my unique program and proven systems to guide female athletes to understanding and implementing the proper nutrition for their sport, life, and health. Myself and my team of registered sports dietitians work one-on-one with clients to address their unique needs and counsel them through the nutritional and behavioral changes needed. Many female athletes who resonate with disordered eating, mental guilt around food and body, relative energy deficiency in sport or female athlete triad, amenorrhea, repeat injuries due to negligent nutrition, or frankly, just a lack of knowledge and understanding on their fueling needs, have seen incredible success in the fast track. After years of working as a sports RD, I've compiled the most effective ways for female athletes to learn nutrition, be supported, be challenged, and ultimately find their success with fueling as fast as possible. So don't wait another day. Get to your goals faster by joining the Female Athlete System of Transformation. Look in the show notes or head to the website to book a free call and learn more. Okay, now let's get you back to the conversation. Enjoy.
And I think too, again, we're jumping all over the place, but this is fun. Because then you're like, well, actually my decision really was burnout, injury. And so post-college, I mean, you ran professionally with some amazing times and PRs, World Half Marathon Championship. You have a PR of 2:36 for the marathon, 1:13 for the half marathon, representing Great Britain, where you're from. So, so many highs and things to be proud of in your professional career. But if you could shed some light perhaps on maybe what some of those struggles were that maybe at the time, if you didn't know it was Red-S, but now in hindsight can have connected the dots, what were some of those more physical manifestations that you think you dealt with throughout your professional career?
Yeah, the one that really broke me, and this is obviously difficult because you could blame this on anything and it's more of a personality trait, but the piece that broke me was the insomnia. It didn't matter if I'd run 25 miles, a long run in that day, or whatever I had done, or run and strength trained and swam or something else. I could not fall asleep. It would take me hours. I would toss and turn. I would feel so frustrated. And I would feel like my brain pinged on, like someone flicked a switch at 4 a.m. Sometimes I could sleep into 5. And so I would be running on 4 to 6 hours of sleep with no matter what training I was doing. And it wasn't restful sleep. That was one of the biggest pieces. But that one is particularly hard for people to wrap their head around because it's like, well, I could have insomnia for many reasons. But for me, that I always mention that first because that is such an integral part of it for me. I sleep really well now. And yeah. I'm not one of those people that head hits the pillow and I'm out, but I fall asleep easily. And so I think a lot of that was that my body was hungry. I think a lot of that was that I felt it was like perfectionism, like stressed about getting this done or that done, and everything felt urgent and everything felt under pressure. And I think a lot of that was tied, even if only the hunger part was technically tied to the under consuming calories. It was more just like running on fumes constantly. And so I never could properly rest.
Yeah, like your sympathetic nervous system was in overdrive.
Yes, exactly.
All the time. And like in survival mode, you couldn't relax.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it? Like if your body is trying to survive, it's gonna be on alert. And so I think that one I mentioned because that is an easy one for us to write off and say, oh, it's just a stressful period. But for me, stressful period or not, you can't blame that for 5+ years.
Right. And honestly, like that's something that I think people don't like. I haven't talked about like that much on this podcast. So I really appreciate that being like your number one thing because I think it's just like
what crushed me in the end.
Yeah. And I cannot imagine how you were able to run or train on such little sleep. I mean, absolutely exhausting.
Yeah. Well, and now being able to see the difference of like when I have a 6-7 hour night's sleep, how I feel tired in my body, and thinking that I had double, triple the training I'm doing now and my constant state would have been that fatigue.
Yeah.
So it's just quite funny looking back and that I managed to survive like that. But then some of the other ones that really, my family has a history of Raynaud's. My grandma had it. My aunts, a few of my aunts had it. And I blamed that. I said, oh, I just have Raynaud's, because my hands and fingers and toes would go white. They would feel really cold really easily. And that was an easy, again, thing for me to fall back on. But that was another sign that my body was not getting enough fuel to, decided to sacrifice my extremities. And again, now I don't have that problem.
Okay, I need to pause you on this one because I brought this up on another podcast, and I have a lot of clients that get diagnosed with Raynaud's, and I'm like, I don't think that's it. And I actually don't, at this point in time, even as the expert, I don't have any scientific evidence to back this up, but I'm just like, many of my clients complain of these symptoms. And then once we heal the red S, it's gone. But many clients are also come to me with this diagnosis. And I'm like, I think it's a misdiagnosis. So this is really, and it even runs in your family, but you don't have the symptoms anymore.
I mean, I'd say that my toes get colder than the average person, but part of me wonders if that, I lived in Michigan for 5 years. I had multiple instances where they got, so burned essentially from being so cold.
Oh gosh,
and I wonder if there's some permanent damage there.
There could be, yeah.
But because
or there is that genetic component, like you said, it does run in your family, but it's nowhere near what it used to be.
No, nowhere near, especially in my fingers. I used to have to wear multiple layers of gloves. But now, even on the coldest of cold days, I will wear one pair of mittens, but I don't need anything else.
Yeah.
And so it's, I would say, 80% better than it was.
Crazy. And I need to connect with some doctors on this because I'm like I said, I don't have any scientific articles. This is just anecdotal from clients I work with that I'm like, this, it just seems like such a misdiagnosis.
Well, and I do want to add, I said about my aunts, one of them in particular, she has anorexia nervosa. So
yeah.
Does she have Raynaud's? I don't know. Maybe not.
Yeah.
So that was another major one. Digestive issues was something I didn't really struggle with, but that is something that I've come across many people who have. But again, it's another easy one to write off and say, well, I'm just, a lactose intolerant or celiac or whatever it might be. Yeah. The major ones for me were the insomnia and the cold hands and feet. And those were the two things that really affected my quality of life the most.
And not that I'm happy about this, but I'm just appreciative that those are the two things, because again, going back to even just female athlete triad, it's bone breaks or, I'm performance is worsening or, I'm really struggling with food and my relationship with food. Those are such things that we do talk about a lot and are really important to address, but it's insomnia, being cold all the time. That's something that affects you every single day as well and can really break you down, tear you apart. And yes, just like you said, this is why diagnosing red S can be sometimes difficult because there's a lot of reasons for not great sleep, but maybe if you did fuel yourself better, that would be fixed. And in your case, absolutely,
Well, so I don't know how much you want to bring up weight in this situation, but a lot of people have commented to me over the years, you don't actually really look much different to that time, and while I actually have no idea what I weigh anymore, but I can see that, I'm pretty similar, but whatever that just getting me over the hump safe line was enough. And so it's so interesting that those symptoms went away I couldn't tell you how much extra fuel that was, but whatever it was just enough to be where my body has found where it wants to be. But the symptoms that affected my quality of life just faded away. And so I think I find that an important thing to mention because I think people often think that their life is going to be totally different. And it really, at least for me, and I'm one person, there's a bit of a kind of figuring out what's going on stage from your body. But once it feels safe, my life really doesn't look too different to what it did before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's an important perspective to bring to the table. And it might be encouraging for people to, start their recovery journey and not be so afraid of it. You don't know what's going to happen. Your journey is different than somebody else's. And weight might change, weight might not. We don't know, but it's worth trying and figuring it out. If you're not in a good place and you're not healthy and you're not happy, like, we've got to try. And I think too, people do jump to the conclusion that recovery means weight gain. And again, it might, but it might not, or it might mean temporarily.
Yes.
And not like long term. We don't know. And so I think it's fair to share that in your case, that what, like you said, you don't know your weight, but like at the end, years later, your life isn't that drastically different.
And I think one thing that I've really noticed with probably the tens of thousands of people that have reached out to me, the factor I would say was most in common was when the person reaches a point where they say, you know what, I don't care what it takes. I'm going to follow this road and trust myself. I'm not going to look at any kind of numbers. And when they reach that point to where they're ready to let go and trust, that's when things start coming together. And so while I've had people say this to me, I actually have no idea myself, but I just know that my life is better because I can sleep, because my I'm not cold all the time, because I'm not constantly irritable because I'm hungry. So for me, that's the real success. My relationships are better because I'm not, dictated by the fueling that I need. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And so throughout, I think, your professional running career too, like, you are expressing that you did feel like your nutrition, you were confined, or like the fuel kind of dictated or kind of controlled your life in some sense. Was that just kind of the nature of your personality or something that you were working to address, or were even aware that it was a not so healthy thing? Because some people just operate like that without even being aware.
I'd say it was a little bit of everything. I was aware deep down of what I was doing, and I was aware deep down that I was getting to a place where I knew I was potentially sacrificing performance so that I could, quote unquote, look like everyone else. But then at the same time, I really did have that dysmorphia to where I didn't think I looked like everyone else. I did think I was, quote unquote, the big one. And so that was very much unconscious because I didn't see what was going on underneath. But yeah, I was very good at eating all foods. I really didn't have foods that were off limits. It was more just in the middle of the day when I'd be at home. I just wasn't listening to hunger signals, especially if I knew I was going to be eating out or eating something, having takeout or something for dinner. I would be very conscious with my choices. And if I was hungry soon after lunch, I would make myself wait. And that's more, I think, the restrictive behavior of feeling those hunger signals and saying, nope, I'm going to override you right now. And I'm going to tell you to wait. So I was aware I was doing things like that. And that was not healthy. I knew that wasn't healthy. I also would have situations. I remember one day going to this, I was in Indiana visiting a family friend, and this older lady family friend wanted to go to this Amish town somewhere. I don't know, it must have been like an hour or two out of Bloomington, Indiana. And we got to this place and it was a buffet, and it was like, like the beans that are like dripping in oil and like the fried chicken and all these things. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to eat? What am I going to eat? And I was panicking. And I remember being aware in that moment, like, this is not good that I'm getting so worked up about one meal because I can't see anything that I feel good about. And so there were certain little moments. My dad also hugged me at one point and said, oh, Tina, I can feel the bones in your back. And he's not someone who makes remarks like that. And that was another awareness moment of like, at first it was like, oh, wow, it's working. But then it was like, oh, what are you doing? What are you doing? And and each of those notches was kind of a reminder of like, this is not gonna last. Like, you cannot go on like this.
And I appreciate too, just that honesty. And sometimes it's this weird positive reinforcement, and I think that's where we can confuse ourselves in our own heads. But you did have that rational mind making that mental note of, this is probably not good. This is not good, and we just need to listen to that more. I think that is our instinct.
Yeah, for sure.
But
Absolutely.
We're overriding it. Your instinct was, this is not good. Your instinct was, I'm hungry. Your instinct was, I probably, shouldn't have those bones sticking out on my back. But we overrided it. And I don't know, I'm just thinking kind of deeply right now about all the times where maybe we as women override our instincts, and really want to encourage all of us to lean into it more.
It's hard though. Like, it's really hard, like, especially when we are told that the way we look matter. We hear people making comments. We see things that show a certain, I mean, for me as an elite athlete at the time, I was looking up to, in my early 20s, I'm looking up to these athletes who are in their late 20s, early 30s, and their bodies are so, well, at the time it was like, look at theirs, mine's like soft and theirs is this, but I couldn't see that they had 10 years of additional training on top of what I had in their peak, physical shape. Whereas I was comparing my 19-year-old body that was just coming out of my teenage years. And so we see all these signs that tell us, well, these are the fastest women in the world, so surely I need to look like that. And so we're constantly overriding our intuition, and it's hard. I don't think it's ever really going to get any easier for us to start doing it. But once we start doing it, it really gets easier and easier. And I find now I can listen to my gut in almost anything, because I know what that voice sounds like.
Mm-hmm. It translates into every area of your life at that point. Yeah. Yeah. Once you start, because then you're just like, wait, I'm happier. Like, life is better this way when I listen to my gut, listen to my intuition. Kind of being cheesy here, but it's one of those things of like, you already know the answers. You already have,
Yeah, absolutely. But part of that is giving yourself the space to listen. And we're so good right now at distracting ourselves. And I know this as much as anyone else, even now, like, we're so good at, you're going up the stairs and you open your phone and look at something. You are waiting in line. You open up your phone to look at something. We can't even give ourselves these tiny little chunks. We run to music. We drive to listening to things. So we never have that space to for that voice to come through. So that's the other piece of it, is that we have to get better at giving ourselves actually the quiet so we can hear it. Because if you can't hear it, you're not going to listen to it.
Totally. Is that something you are intentional about in your life now, like having quiet time or alone time?
Yes, I'm a big journaler, but I will say, even though I know it's good, even though I love doing it, I still have to force myself a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And it does feel like, oh, I don't want to do that. I'd much rather just like turn on the TV for 10 minutes and zone out. But I know that it's better for me. And I also do, I don't know if you would have seen this, I do these things called together runs, where I take a microphone with me on my runs. And those are really good for reflecting and just I make sure to leave intentional chunks of time where people can reflect on their own lives or reflect on their own bodies, like guided, but still quiet, to encourage us to get, even if it's just once a week, some time where we are quiet. And even if it's 2-minute chunks at a time. So
it's actually it's one of my favorite things about running too. Like, I do enjoy running to music. That's fun. It pumps you up, but also, and I love running with friends. And then I love that time when you challenge yourself to just go out and listen to nature and hear the sound of your feet and your breath. And oh my gosh, so restorative, so healing, so needed.
For sure.
Yeah.
Fans, I hope you are enjoying the conversation. We are going to take a quick pause so I can tell you about our partners. They are so valuable in providing you with amazing products and helping keep this podcast going. First, Previnix. Thanks to their incredible Joint Health Plus product, my aches and pains from running, and honestly, being a new mom, as crazy as that sounds, have literally disappeared. As I continue to push my body physically as an athlete, and frankly, as I continue to age, I was shocked at the aches I was beginning to feel in my knees, wrists, ankles. It seemed like omega-3s, curcumin, nothing was really working. But after just 1 month of Joint Health Plus from Previnix, I felt a drastic improvement. Honestly, this is something I rarely experience with supplements, but Previnix uses quality ingredients backed by sound science. Their products are pharmaceutical grade with extensive testing for safety, quality, and purity. They offer other supplements, including probiotics, omega, immune health, and a multivitamin,
which I also use daily. And the science behind their multi has changed my opinion on multivitamins altogether. I used to never recommend them or take them myself, and now I recommend and take Prevnex Multivitamin Mineral and Antioxidant Plus daily. I am so impressed with Prevnex, and I can't wait for you to try. You can get 15% off your first order using the code RISEUP at checkout. The company also offers 100% money-back guarantee within 30 days because they stand by their products, and so do I. Head to Prevnex.com, Prevnex.com, and use the code RISEUP, one word, at checkout for 15% off. For nutritional shakes and bars to fuel your body, head to Orgain.com and use the code RISEUP30 for 30% off your first order. Orgain's ready-to-drink nutritional shakes are my go-to to throw in my bag when I'm heading to the gym or to a trail to run, so that when I'm done, I've got a recovery option to refuel and rehydrate with right away. Orgain makes nutrition and sports nutrition that works. For repeat customers, check the show notes for more. And again, first-time customers, head to Orgain.com and use the code RISEUP30, all caps. And last, ladies, moms, every mom is an athlete. That's why Jen and Carrie have designed the best nursing and pumping sports bras. I cannot rave about these enough. I hate that most maternity bras have clips and don't support being active, but Jen and Carrie get that because they're moms and athletes themselves. They want you to be a mom and an athlete. So their stylish and athletic high-impact bras allow you to crush your workout and then feed your baby with comfort and style. They have saved me during this time of my life, keeping up with sport and momming. Please go check them out at jenandcarrie.com and use the code RISEUP10 for $10 off your order. You won't regret it. Again, jenandcarrie.com, RISEUP, all caps, RISEUP10 for $10 off. Let's get back to the episode.
Well, and so again, because you are such a powerful influencer and an advocate in this space, I do want to then highlight, then it was 2017 that I think you first kind of announced publicly and, wrote a blog about kind of stepping away from professional running, and due to all these things you were experiencing. And then you thought, well, I would like to have a family too. So again, you got your mind focused on that. And I actually just in preparing for this podcast went back to, I think one of your first, if not the first, original blog post in 2017 where you shared about it. And you even used the term of I'm going all in, meaning I'm going to eat whatever fuel is needed and stop exercise. And I think this is where there's still, whether it be hesitation, confusion, mixed messaging about what is the best way or the fastest way. And I think really it's an individual choice as well as to how we want to do things. I guess for you, what was that decision for you of because you did stop running for, I'm not sure how many weeks exactly, but there was some time.
Yeah, I didn't run for 3 months after I stopped. And for me, as I said, I reached a breaking point where I'd been training for 14 years continuously, hadn't really had many injuries, and so hadn't really had too much of a break over that time. I also had recently, as you mentioned, run in the World Half Marathon Championships, and that was a major goal of mine to run in a world championship. And so that I was kind of a bit lost in terms of what's next.
Yeah.
And so for me, I really needed a break from it. And so I was able to be okay, I think you may have read this somewhere, but I said I was going to be the best period get backer there ever was.
And I love that shows your competitive nature too, right? Of just I'm going to be good at this recovery thing. I'm going to get it done. Yeah,
exactly. But the thing is, people often ask me how hard was that period of time. And for me, it really wasn't as hard as it should have, could have, you would expect it to have been. And I think that was partly because I took back the ownership of my life and said, I want to do this. I wasn't forced out because of an injury. I wasn't forced out because I came to the reality that I was getting slower or something. I was going out while I was on top. And so it did feel like a relief to speak to that. And so for me, it was easy to, it wasn't the hardest part actually was sitting still. Having been a busybody my whole life, like I really was intentional to watch TV in the middle of the day. And I still do that sometimes. I did that. I watched, I was in the middle of the day yesterday and I was like, I'm going to watch the last episode of Bridgerton. And so I did. Yes, and I would never have done that in my past because I would have been like, what a waste of an hour. And I might do it in the evening, but not when I had energy left.
But and I think this also highlights, sorry to interrupt you, it does highlight too, like lessons that you learn as you go through your recovery journey, whether it be your fueling lessons, your relationship with rest, and exercise, whatever it might be, relationship with perfectionism is like, once you're recovered, those are things that you kind of keep doing in some sense because this is what keeps you happier and healthier. So the hardest part was learning how to rest, but now you're like, ooh, this is fun. I get to watch Bridgerton in the middle of the day.
Yeah, exactly. And when it's funny when I look back on it, because most people who work a 9 to 5 have a lunch hour, but I would be like kind of almost seeing it as like a hacking the system. Like, why wouldn't I just like shovel food into my mouth while I'm working and just make sure I max out my time? But yeah, now I've recognized that those patterns and it's got me into trouble a few times since of the hustle. Yes. Okay. Will you be more successful that way? Probably. Will you be miserable along the way? Probably. And so the relationship to rest was the hardest one for me. The running, I was quite comfortable taking that time off. The food, I really didn't have much of a problem with that. Again, I didn't have forbidden foods. It was just literally a permission I gave myself to listen to those hunger signals. And I did have a really helpful book called No Period Now What?
Yeah.
That was really helpful in any time I did feel, it was more a fear of, I'm never going to stop being hungry.
Yeah.
That was more the fear. So that really helped with that.
And just to give our listeners an insight, is that true that you never stopped being hungry?
Absolutely. Well, that is not true. It is interesting because these thoughts, you envision these things of like, I'm going to blow up. I'm going to not be able to walk. I'm going to get so, your mind starts spiraling. And it was probably for 6 weeks, I was in a bottomless pit. I could not eat enough. And it would be like, I'd have a really big dinner. I'd have a dessert. And then 2 hours later, there'd be that little hunger pang. And I'd be like, can I really be hungry again? But I'd say, yeah, I am. So I'd eat, I know, something else.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. It's just that I think during Red S recovery, that is a very common symptom of, I feel like I'm a bottomless pit, and that can be so scary for people. But I actually want to share, like, it probably means you're on the right track. And what you have to do is you have to continue to listen to it and give yourself permission to it. Because if you get scared of it and say, this can't be right, and you don't listen to it, then you just backtrack. So listen to it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's a sign your body is feeling safe enough to be like, okay, I'm going to store up. And it did. Like I ate and ate and ate and ate. And then it felt like someone flicked the switch.
And then you're like, oh, I'm full.
And it wasn't like I didn't ever get hungry anymore, but it was finally like, oh, well, I guess like, oh, wow, did 4 hours go by and I haven't eaten anything? Oh, I guess it did. It was kind of just like someone flicked a switch off that, all right, well, you're good. You're good. I feel safe now. So yes, I did come out the other side. And yeah, there probably was a bit of a period where I'd say I was balancing myself back out in terms of trying to find a good place. I was also pregnant, so that made it a little bit more confusing. Trying to find a place where I felt like I could listen to those signals. But yeah, now as crazy as this can sound to those of us who know it, like I now know what hunger feels like, and I know that what that means, and I oblige.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah. And it's something that, again, it sounds so simple, like saying it now, but I know that, for somebody who was in your shoes at that time, like it was confusing and difficult. And, we had ignored and suppressed hunger for so long. And then we feel weird when suddenly we feel like we're this bottomless pit, but these are all normal parts of the process. And you do come out the other side of it.
Yeah. And I want to add one more thing in that, like many of the people listening, many of us would have been in that period of time where maybe for me, I was kind of right at the tail end of the like low fat era, but that's still that still affects us in some ways of the side effects of that period. But more to the point is like all those messages around, if you're hungry, if you don't want to eat as much during dinner, like drink a glass of water beforehand, or if you're hungry, go for a walk and see if you still are hungry 15 minutes. Like we've been ingrained or trained to get these hunger signals and then distract them.
Yeah.
And those messages are still very much around.
They are.
So it is going to take a while to fight against those.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I also want to give hope to people just regarding timeline as well and what a full recovery can look like. You were missing a menstrual cycle for 9 years.
I mean, 11 if you want to count the time where I said that I, first lost it, and then I had that one period. So if you remove that one period, it was 11.
Okay, 11 years. But in making the appropriate changes of trusting in your intuition, eating when you're hungry, eating more, which was needed for you, resting your body in all the different ways that meant taking some time off running, but also just learning how to relax and watch TV. In healing, you were able to restore a menstrual cycle. So missing for basically 11 years. And then now you are the mother of 2 children as well.
Yeah. So I did. And I want to add that if people do any research on my story, I went all in. As we said, I really went for it, and I was able to get pregnant pretty quickly, 10 weeks. But I think most people struggle with doing it the way I did. In fact, most of the people who have reached out to me, I think, could not mentally do it the way I did. And so that means it is going to take more time. And so I do want to mention ahead of time, because I know at the time it was quite disheartening for some people to hear me say how quickly it came back, and then they'd expect the same, and it didn't work out that way. So we each have our own bodies.
Yes, we each have our own journeys, our own bodies. I think it can be powerful to share how quickly you overcame it. My program, when I help clients, I call it the fast track, because I work with them for 12 weeks, and we can work together longer because nutrition and certain people's journeys do take longer, but it is amazing how much people can accomplish in a short period of time if you are invested in it. And, that's what, you were ready. You were all in, not just with the actions, but mentally, like you said, like you were ready for this in your life and wanted it, and look how far you came. And it doesn't mean that if it does take somebody 6 months or a year, it doesn't mean that that's wrong. That's just their journey. But again, in some ways, it is going to take the amount of time that you're fully in. How do I want to phrase this? I always say you're going to get out what you put into it. If you put in 100% effort, you're going to get results faster, right? And that faster is still negotiable, as far as what is fast, but it's going all in is hard for people. But then you also got to ask yourself, like, well, why only give 50%? In something that I want.
Yeah. And I do think there's something to, I do want to mention at this point that people have often said to me, like, would I go back and change anything? And I wouldn't, because that was my story, my journey. So even if I could whisper in my ear age 19, would I change anything? No, I wouldn't. But I do think for me, in my story, I wasn't meant to hear from or connect with anyone who truly spoke to me, because maybe that was meant to be that I was going to be the person that spoke to it. But maybe for someone listening, there's so much of what we've talked about today that is hitting you right in the gut. And I am that person, or us, Lindsay and I talking together, is that, am I ready for this? And only you know the answer to that. But if this is hitting you hard enough, you can use this to be that, like Lindsay said there, okay, I'm going to go for this. And so I just want to mention that at this point.
Absolutely. And it's a great time to kind of shift and transition to how you are now supporting others, and you have many Red S resources. Can you share a little bit about your new YouTube page that you have and community?
Yeah. So I have thought about doing this since 2017 when I first spoke out about this. And part of it is I had 2 kids, as you mentioned, a 2-year-old and 5-year-old. And that leaves limited time.
Yes.
But I also wanted to make sure that I could be truly in a place where I felt confident enough to share about this. And having had my period regularly since 6 months after my 2-year-old, I now feel like, okay, my body is content. It feels safe. And so what I basically wanted to make was what I felt like I needed, which was I wanted to take up the thousands of questions that I have been sent, take the questions word for word, like, my weight is normal. Surely I don't have RED-S, and ask the experts, because it's one thing me talking about it. I'm a N of 1, but what about the professionals who work with this day in, day out? What would they say to those people who say, yeah, my weight is normal. It can't be that. I eat a lot, so surely I'm fine. Or I get a cycle every 40 to 60 days. Is that enough? So I took these questions, asked them to some of the best experts in the world, and put them on YouTube for free, because this is really important to me. I don't want anyone to feel that broken and alone like I did. So I put these out there so people could learn about it. I really hope it will become something that collegiate and high school kids share around. So it gives them the empowerment to say, okay, my coach is telling me that I need to lose a few pounds, but I've already lost my period. So actually I feel like I need to go the other way and you know, take care of my body, not try and like force it into a different, smaller body. And so, I decided to create these resources. There's 50 videos on YouTube. There's also more videos on a website attached to my website, which actually, as of, well, I'd imagine by the time you release this, we're opening up to make it free for people to go sign up to but we wanted it to be separate because it's more personal, it's more private, it's just the place where people are going when they've at that moment, I want to do this. I'm committed. I'm ready. I'm going to go for this. And so we wanted it to be a private place.
Yeah.
And so, those are the two major things. I'm also like very passionate about, continuing to spread the hope that this can be worked through. You can get your body functioning again. And it's maybe not as different a life as you think, but some of the elements that just are so, they feel like they're a part of who you are, but they're miserable parts of who you are, like the insomnia, like the cold. They're not who you are, and that you can have a life where you're not thinking about food 24/7. And so, that's why I wanted to make it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I was, again, in preparing for this podcast, I went through probably like 20 of your videos on YouTube and some excellent experts, Dr. Gaudiani, Rebecca McConneville. So some really great people. And a lot of these people are actually local to where you live right now, I believe.
One of them.
Yeah, just one.
Of them, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought maybe, well, I don't live where you live, so my geography might be off. I thought I recognized a few of them that I was like, oh, I think these are local people too. But so really wonderful. So we will share links in the show notes, to that YouTube site and the community. Like you say, I think it is because there's so many, you didn't necessarily have much support. You did recommend that book, No Period Now What, which I also recommend to many people. So it's a lot of information in there. So that was a resource you had. But again, we need to create more of these resources and help people going through this. So I appreciate all that you're doing there. And this is one more thing that people can go check out.
Yeah, thank you. I did actually write a book as well, but it was just my story. It's not giving I guess it's my story plus things I recommend or things I did.
And things you learned along the way, yeah.
Yeah, it's not so much though a textbook where you're going to learn things. It's more me sharing my part of the story and just to show people the thoughts that I was having at the beginning, the thoughts in the middle, and then the thoughts as I kind of came out the other side.
Yeah.
So.
But so helpful because, again, we need the science, but we also need those stories that are relatable and connecting with people and, feeling reassured with what's going on in this process. So yes, that book, Overcoming Amenorrhea, which is also on your website that people can access. Yeah.
Wonderful. Although I would send, if people want a physical copy, go to the A Word because the ones on my website are PDFs. So that's a digital Kindle version, I suppose.
Okay, wonderful. The A Word.
Just sometimes people get confused and they order it on my website and they're like, is this coming in the mail? I'm like, nope, It says on there it's the digital one. So
it's the digital on your website, but okay,
yes,
but you can purchase a hard copy too. Yeah. Awesome. Well, Tina, I ask all of our podcast guests the same questions to close this out. Are you ready to play along?
I am, yeah.
If there's one food you could eat every single day for the rest of your life, but never get sick of it, what would it be?
Ooh, I don't know. I do tend to cycle through foods, but right now I am in a dips phase, like especially caramelized onion. I honestly think I'd eat that by the spoonful. I can't promise on. So Leah, let's say that dips. Although if I'm going to have something for every day for the rest of my life, then maybe I should make it like a kale, spinach, cucumber, celery juice so that I can then I can rotate through my other things. I know.
Can't get sick of it though. Man, yeah, I like dip. Dip as an answer is good.
I'm definitely loving dips right now. Like the more the better.
Love that. Okay. Again, this might sound like an obvious question, but you just never know. So I got to ask, what is your favorite sport to participate in? Yes, the answer probably is running, but I also really love to surf. Like that, the feeling of that is incredible. So that's the only thing that comes close. I love that.
But yeah, I think the answer will always be running.
Yeah. And you don't live near the water currently, so you have to go.
I know I live right in the middle, like as far away from water as you could possibly be. Just where you'd want to be.
But that's awesome. Yeah. Yeah.
Someday.
How about as a spectator? What's your favorite sport to spectate and watch and cheer on?
I do also like to watch surfing. I think that's amazing to see them on those huge waves. But
freak out. Yeah.
I do. I mean, I like the ones that everyone says of gymnastics and ice skating, but I would say I also really like to watch equestrian or like horse riding. That's another passion I had as a teenager. And I just think I just love watching it. So I'd say that as well.
Very cool. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, and then if there's another female athlete out there, somebody well-known or just in your personal life that you want to give a shout out to for being a role model, whether in the space of Red S or just anything at all, who would that be and why?
I mean, there's so many. I want to give a shout out to Ali Ostrander because she is someone who most people either with Red S, going through eating disorder recovery, going through some kind of untangling of their relationship with food, like myself, talk about it afterwards. Ali has been so brave and bold speaking about it during, and I really admire that about her because she easily could have hidden away and she hasn't. So
totally. And I actually just interviewed her as well. So I agree with you on that. And I'm not sure whose episode will come out first. But
okay, well, Ali's is already out. Go listen to it because she's amazing.
Yeah, we've had between Ali Ostrander and you, Tina Muir, you guys have just been so inspirational role models in all that you do in life, not just in the world of running and nutrition, but so much more that you guys do to support women, humans, athletes. So thank you so much, Tina. We appreciate this.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate you and all the work that you are doing. So keep up that too because it's needed.
Well, everybody, thanks for listening. I really hope you enjoyed that episode. And if you did, if you are a true fan of female athlete nutrition, then I would love if you could support our podcast by spreading the word. Share a review on your listening channel. Give us 5 stars. It really helps get the word out and get the show more views to positively impact others. Also, you can support the podcast by joining our Patreon. Head to patreon.com/female athlete nutrition to consider a donation, or even better, join our membership where you get extra monthly content and perks. We don't want you to simply listen alone. We want you to be a part of a community and a movement of fierce, fit, and fueled female athletes. So patreon.com/female athlete nutrition is where you can do exactly that, learn more, and join. A huge thanks to our affiliates and partners as well. Once again, Prevenix, Inside Tracker, Orgain, Practice Better, Jen and Carrie. Please go check them out, and their links in the show notes where you can get deals and discounts. Last, be sure that you do more than just listen. If you need help with fueling, it's time to take action. Head to my website to learn more. You can either book a free call with me to learn more about our coaching programs and how we can work directly with you, whether it's the fast track or otherwise. Or you can take our online self-study course, Female Athlete Nutrition. You can literally sign up and gain access right now. You can explore our downloadable products, including the Red S Recovery Guide, High Iron Fueling Guide,
Or if you are a coach of a team, check out our brand new coaches toolkit for teams. You can also just learn more. We have a blog, a RED-S quiz to see if RED-S is affecting you. If you need help, I want you to get help fast. Too many girls and athletes struggle with nutrition, but you don't have to any longer. You can rise up with the power of nutrition, take action today in any of these avenues, and become fierce, fit, and fueled. Links in the show notes, and we'll see you next time.